Yo, yo, yo. What is good? Y'all know what it is. It's from the logo. It's your boy ZZ Huncho back in the cut on a Tuesday. Vibing out. I believe this is episode 53, maybe. One of the and we in the 50s.
Wow.
I got my boy Gifted in the building. Y'all see the title. The Clippers are an unserious franchise. We've talked about it on a billion occasions. We're going to talk about it one more again, just so y'all hear us real quick, especially for the ones in the back. And we are being joined by our boy Hayes. Jalen will be here.
Drink, bro. I was gonna add myself in. What's going on, bro?
My bad. My bad.
Boy, see Hayes, it was like, nah. Red button, red button, red button, red button.
What's good, fam?
Not
What's
much.
good, what's good?
Not much. All right, look, the chat's already by the chat. I mean, Brandon Katz is already going crazy about this title. We're gonna get into it in a little bit, but I do have an article for y'all that I found very interesting. I found it earlier as I was chilling at work, bored as hell. And it's entitled, I think it's called like one question that every team needs to ask themselves, one tough question that they must answer next season. I'm just gonna go through some of the ones that I found that were interesting. All right.
Sure.
The first one was the Brooklyn Nets, and it said who else needs to go. It says the Brooklyn Nets shipped Mikal Bridges to the New York Knicks and regained control of their 2025 first-round pick with a pair of trades earlier this offseason. Considering how dreadful the Nets were to close out last year, the post-Bridges Nets have been planning on tanking this upcoming season more than likely. This begs the question, who else will they trade? Can Brooklyn convince another team to take on the last year of Ben Simmons' contract? Now, that got me thinking. What value does Ben Simmons have in the trade market to y'all? What value does he have? You got to think, for a player of Ben Simmons, right? The biggest issue with him recently, at least, has been that back, right? He's got a bad back. So lingering back problems are not something that opposing teams are going to look at and say, "Ooh, we want that," along with what you might potentially be able to bring us, right? So what do y'all think the value of Ben Simmons is on the trade market?
I think his value is negative value. I mean, at this point, he's a guy that has not really played a ton of basketball. When he has played, he's been kind of hampered, hasn't really looked like the same Ben Simmons we saw. And also, he's just afraid to be a aggressive scorer of the basketball. When you put all those things into its proper context, he's really not that valuable of a player. What is valuable is the fact that because he's making a lot of money, he's an expiring contract that a team can use to create cap space for themselves. But that's really it. Can Ben Simmons become a better player? Sure, but I'm not going to lie to you. Contract year Ben Simmons, I would kind of expect that from him. That's me, Hayes.
I think the value that Ben Simmons has is just that of an expiring contract. If a team has some salary that they're just looking to dump, that they just want to dump that salary off, it got 3 years left on it, that's the only value I really see for Ben Simmons. Otherwise, there is no value in Ben Simmons. There just isn't anymore. And it sucks because, like, if you go back and look at what Ben Simmons' first 3 years in the league, it looked like you had something. At this point, at 27 years old, Ben Simmons has zero value for anybody.
Sad. Yeah.
It's unfortunate, man.
I'm inclined to agree. It actually sucks. But hey, Sturdy, why y'all topped out, Brandon? Look, I ain't gonna lie to you.
He didn't even make it 5 minutes into the episode. It honestly wasn't me.
Crazy.
I'm not gonna cap to you, bro. I just don't have time today. All right. So in the nicest way possible, my dog. Like I just don't have time for that shit. I can't. For somebody to at one point I was about to say, oh shit, the comment section jumping right now. It's Brandon talking to himself. I ain't got time for that. All right. Stop. Calm down. All right. I'm putting him in timeout. We'll see if when he comes back, he's a changed man or not. Or whatever.
He won't be.
But whatever. Moving forward. The next one that I thought was interesting, chat, y'all get it on this too. LaMelo Ball. When is it gonna? My question is, when we gonna start having them conversations? Look, we already having them with Lonzo, if we're being real, right? About damn, it's the injuries. With LaMelo in the last 4 years, I think on average he plays 46 games a year, and this is the franchise player for a team that is at the bottom of the league and has been there consistently for the last God knows how long. So the question that I have is, with Brandon Miller having one hell of a season for a rookie year last year, the question remains as to we talking about like Trey and DeJounte when they were breaking up, and if Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are going to work. LaMelo Ball has got to play more if we're going to start having conversations about if him and Brandon Miller are going to work. But I just want y'all thoughts on that.
I mean, we talked about this last episode, right?
My bad. Go ahead, Gifton.
My bad about the Hayes. Yeah, last episode we talked about this. I really feel like this is the year for him. I mean, after offering him all that money, I think they're banking on the fact that his injuries won't be as bad as they've been so far because he's so young. I think the Hornets are just trying to establish what their core is. And right now for them, it's Brandon Miller and has to be Ball. I understand like the problems with him being on the floor, but when he has played, he's been a pretty good player who, year by year has gotten better. You just want to see a bigger sample size of him actually playing basketball. But after you give him a contract of 5 years, $270 million, you're not changing anything until you're at least 2 years in. I don't think. Plus, they're not a good team. Their goal is to get good by him playing basketball. So that's the overall place I would say they're in, Hayes.
I agree. And I think when you look at LaMelo Ball, the last time he played basically a full season, they were a 43-win team. And they have better pieces theoretically around him than when they did win 43 games with Brandon Miller and Mark Williams being there. You brought Miles Bridges back. Like, they have some good pieces on that team. But here's what I think that slowly, and they're doing it over time, I look at this now and say, if Mark Williams takes a step, he could be healthy as well because he had some health concerns last year. If Brandon Miller keeps taking a step up himself, if he takes a step or a leap, they could potentially start being a team that is ready to just start moving forward. And if LaMelo's there, he's there, is the way, much like the Pelicans. I think they could find themselves in that spot much sooner rather than later.
Yeah. See, my thing is just we talked, like Gifton said, we talked about it last show. With the Hornets, it sucks that it's a matter that I look at it as, because I just want to see the potential of how good Melo can be. This is a guy that is 24, 8, and 6. I mean, he was putting up in the times in which he's there. That's the type of guy that he is. And in my one NBA game that I've been to, it was a Charlotte Hornets Spurs game, I think 2 seasons ago, and I got to see LaMelo Ball play. The only reason I was like, yeah, I'll go, is to see LaMelo, and he was gold in that game. Keldon Johnson also had a masterclass. It was a random regular season game, meant nothing. Both teams ended up missing the playoffs. Story, but I was like, yo, LaMelo, like, watching him in person, the aura surrounding him, yeah, I feel it, and you felt it in the city of Charlotte. So my thing is, I just want to see him healthy. That's it, to really be able. And I also want to see this team actually, find some camaraderie, get a competent coach and all of that, get the pieces just flowing in the right direction. I think that's what I said last episode, is everything just kind of flowing in the right direction. And it seems like, hopefully, if he stays healthy, then we get to see some progress in that. We'll be able to analyze it as it happens. But next up is the Dallas Mavericks. All right. Now, obviously, I kind of want to talk about this one anyway, just because Klay Thompson had his interview today, or his not interview, his press conference. Yeah. Now, give me your thoughts on that. The way I'm looking at it is, I'm more inclined to be just like, as the days go on, it is what it is. We're moving forward. Wish him the best, but let me know what you thought about it.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with what happened with Klay. I mean, I've said this beforehand. Klay Thompson at this point is at the end of his career. He wanted to get paid. Golden State wasn't willing to give him the contract he was looking for, so he moved on, and that's fine. I think for Dallas, what he said was, you can't leave me open. I feel like I'm going to get much better looks on this team. And I actually agree with that. Teams would blitz Steph a lot, but they would have one guy on Klay because the other 3 men in the lineup couldn't really shoot the ball, or were not spacers who were actually respected, right? So because of that, now that you have a Luka Doncic and a Kyrie Irving, these are guys that can both bend a defense significantly. So Klay should see more open looks. Right. But I still feel like they're going to know, hey, Klay Thompson, we have to guard you. It's really like the other players, right? Najee Marshall, all of these other guys, how are they going to get guarded? Because Klay Thompson, I don't think his movement is going to look the same in Dallas. He's just going to say, hey, stand in this corner while Kyrie and Luka break down his defense, catch and shoot, and he's really, really good at that. So I want to see what it looks like. I'm excited for whatever he could be there, but I have no hard feelings personally.
Gotcha. Hayes, what you think?
I'm excited to see Klay Thompson in Dallas. Like I honestly think this is going to work a lot for him and where he's at right now. I'm not saying they're gonna how much success they're gonna have as a team or anything like that, but I think the skill set that he brings, the gravity that Luka Doncic has as a ball handler, it's going to potentially open up a lot. And you look at just what him and PJ Washington can bring, just playing their roles really well. To see Klay Thompson in the role of just being a role player may actually give a new leg to his career, the last few years of his career. And so I'm excited to see this. I still think losing DJJ is going to hurt them some, but like Gifted said, I like Najee Marshall and what he can bring there. I can't wait to see it, is what it comes down to.
I agree. The way I look at it is I can't wait to see Klay Thompson because I think he's going to have a better year. I think he's going to have a much better year than even last year. And last year, it wasn't necessarily a bad year. It was a bad year for Klay Thompson, but it wouldn't have been a bad year for any other average NBA player. That's how I've always looked at it. You look at his numbers last year, averaging about 18 a game on about 4 made threes a game, shooting it at 39%. For anybody else, you're going to hear nothing but praise and applause, right? For Klay Thompson, in a situation where he now is in with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, I'm inclined to agree with Gifted on the fact that he's going to have a lot more wide open looks, right, in comparison to the Warriors, even with the gravity that both of those players bring in at any point in time when they have the ball in their hand. So that's going to be interesting to see. What the Mavericks essentially did in the offseason was they got rid of DJJ, they got rid of Tim Hardaway Jr. and Josh Green, replaced those guys with Klay, Najee, and Quentin Grimes, right? And so it's going to be an interesting offense to see. It's going to definitely be an interesting offense to see. I can't wait to see Klay Thompson just be in a lot more wide open catch and shoot role. Like I told y'all before, in the corner last year, you're seeing Tim Hardaway Jr., Josh Green, DJJ. You replace that with potentially Klay Thompson. It's a whole different story. So it is what it is. Can't wait to see it.
I do think the defensive side of the basketball is going to be their biggest overall question. I think they'll be fine during the regular season, but having Klay Thompson, Kyrie, and Luka out there at the same time does make their unit weaker on that end. How are they going to utilize Klay Thompson defensively is another question I really want to see from them.
That's the thing too, Gifted. It's essentially up to Klay Thompson, like in that regard of what that lineup, of the potential of that lineup, whether we can look at it and say, okay, their offensive production is like top 5 in the league based off of shooting alone, right? The shooting between the three of them. But if Klay Thompson is a negative defender to the point where it's impacting the game overall, or teams are targeting him or what have you, then obviously Jason Kidd's going to be in for a bumpy ride to figure that out. Like you said, though, them getting Najee Marshall, I'm interested to see him mixed in with those with those three and how that's going to play out. You know, you still have the beneficiating factor of Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively in the paint. So it's all up to how Jason Kidd wants to make that defense look on the perimeter, and we'll see how that, pans out. But I'm with you on that. It's all up to that defense to make that team a legit threat.
For sure.
Next up on the list, obviously, we talked about the Denver Nuggets on Playback on Sunday, so I'm not really gonna get into all that. Cade Cunningham got an extension today, right? What was it? I didn't check the numbers on it, but I was just like, whatever it was,
big money.
Give him everything you can. I was like, Lord have mercy. If there's anybody that need to get paid first, it's that man right there. If Empty Stats was a person, it would be Cade Cunningham. Unfortunately.
Wow, that's crazy. Unfortunately,
that's crazy.
Put those allegations on that man.
Unfortunately, hey, look. I'm not saying that as a slight to him or his game. It's an unfortunate situation. Put him anywhere else, please. Let another team utilize that man's talent. But if we be in a bug, it's not moving me as much as Bradley Beal when he was losing with the Wizards, but leading the league. Like he was going stupid over there too. But it was Empty Stats. Like what are we doing? Jordan Clarkson, the first couple of years in Utah, like what are we doing? But damn, that sucks. Get that. I want to get your take on that. Like, what you're from Detroit, so
yeah. I am
you've seen the Pistons struggle for years. What
live in my
if you were the general manager, like what would you say the direction of this team needed based on the knowledge that you have of obviously Cade getting an extension, what they can do in terms of offseason flexibility or what have you. I know they can't really attract stars to Detroit, but are you looking to trade for a player or a couple players or bringing in the right coach, or what are you doing?
I think at this point, you just have to establish a team. What are you trying to do? What is your direction? And I feel like with Cade, the biggest problem I have with the moves that they've made all the way to this point is they have failed on many draft picks, right? They failed on guys coming in to complement their guy, right? Like, I feel like they have so many guys that are better with the ball in their hands, but aren't great off-ball players and can't really shoot. Like, there's not that many shooters on the roster. To me, if you're Detroit, you're trying to develop a core where, okay, I know that these three guys are somewhat reliable. I know Cade is going to be our overall franchise player. You pay Cade that money because you believe in him to be that player, right? There is a reality where Cade asks out in 2 years. That exists. What happens in the NBA, these guys sign their $250 million contracts, and then they're gone in 3 to 4 years. If you don't want that to happen, if you're Detroit, you have to work on your player development and making your players better. And more importantly, utilizing them in the right spots. We've seen guys be misused on one team, traded. Oh, they look so much better on this team. A lot of that is not just them getting better, but it's their skills being used the right way. For Detroit, you hope that they can actually achieve that.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Hayes, what you think, bro? Chicago and the Pistons used to be rivals in the 80s, but
you will never catch me saying very many good things about the Pistons, and that's just the ingrained hate in my DNA as being a Chicago Bulls fan. I try. Listen, it's trauma. It is what it is. But the Pistons, to give to the point, they had to lock in Cade Cunningham because, and they're never really a free agent destination. So their best hope is to develop guys that they draft well. And so when you look at their young core, so to say, Cade Cunningham, Azur Thompson, Jalen Duren, Ron Holland. They also drafted Bobby Clintman as well. Jaden Ivey. You're hoping that 2 out of 3 of these guys really develop in a meaningful way for you to have anything to hold on to. Otherwise, it's just going to be what Detroit has always been. You're going to have talent there, but then it's just they're going to end up leaving, whether it means requesting a trade or leaving eventually. And so I look at the Detroit Pistons as a team that I actually like a lot of the pieces individually. I think that they did suffer from having a coach that did not believe in any of the players on that roster last year. When you have to convince a coach, go to a coach 3 separate times to get him to take a deal, that to me says that he didn't want to be there. So, I think getting somebody who believes in these players and truly has their mindset on development, that's the best thing. But Detroit is always on the clock because, you can't keep rotating players in and out there. Eventually, something has to stick. And other than Cade, what else is sticking there right now? We don't even know. Hell, until they change GMs, there was reports that Jaden Ivey was on the board. We don't know what's happening now. So, they got to find something out, and hopefully that they get some part other than Cade, and even Cade refining his game as well, that just keeps developing, so then they can have a core there. They got some young promising players there. They just got to develop.
Yeah, player development is the most important asset when you're a young team trying to get better. If you cannot develop your players well, they will get traded to other situations that will. You have to develop your players.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I also think, like Hayes just said, I think that there was a lot of, not a lot, but a few years went by where there wasn't a genuine urge to help the franchise become something other than just a poverty-stricken lottery team that couldn't strike the number 1 pick multiple years. You know what I'm saying? Just a poverty-stricken franchise that just had no direction and was stuck in purgatory. And it sucks because you have a player like Cade where you see so much star potential, but you can't capitalize on it. And like I said, you're just hoping on, at this point, I think that banking on a SOAR is great, but it's a matter of every piece over there has got to be on point at all times. in order to make everybody feel like there's a purpose of playing basketball there. They won like 36% of their games. I think I saw a stat or something like that. This year. Like, no. Since they traded Chauncey Billups in the 2009 season, in the 15 full seasons since that trade, they only won 36% of their games. That's the stat.
Damn.
Woo. Yeah,
that is the stat.
Crazy.
Yeah, man.
So to me, I'm just like, yo, fuck going on over there, bro? What's happening?
Hey, man, they got Tobias Harris back.
But they got Tobias Harris back.
And Paul Reed. They picked up Paul Reed today, too.
Talk to me.
I want y'all to know I'm 100% lying. Tobias Harris sucks. But, I mean, they had to do something with the money. So, there's that, I guess.
And Tobias Harris had to go somewhere that would offer him that much money.
Hey, listen, just look at these three players. Two. They got Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway Jr. on that team.
Oh, my God. Like the definition of just we not finna do shit. We just finna shoot occasionally, have marginal impact players you could think of, man. Tim Hardaway Jr. and Tobias.
They got the Tobias Harris of Tobias Harris's, and then Tim Hardaway Jr. is the
Tim Hardaway Jr. of Tim Hardaway Jr. Yeah. Yep.
Just diabolical
100%.
work, bro. Just diabolical work. So, whatever. Pray for the Pistons again for the 17th year in a row. But whatever. Let's move forward. Another team that I thought was interesting on this list because they is the Memphis Grizzlies. All right. So
the Grizz. Okay.
With the Grizzlies, Gifted, was it you that somebody said? I think it was you said that you had them as a top 3 seed next year.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I agree with you. let me just say that I have Memphis as I think they're going to be a top 4 seed. I personally see them at the 4 seed, maybe the 3 seed if all shit shakes right. But I got them as a top 4 seed just based off the fact that I'm taking into account everybody that might be counting them out has got to factor in the fact that we did not see Ja Morant for that season for more than 12 games. What was it? Whatever stretch that he played when he came back and they went on the win streak.
9 games.
9 games. 9
games is what we got from Ja Morant last
So in that time span, we saw a game winner, we saw a body or two. Like we saw everything that we would have saw in a full 82 game stretch where he could have possibly played, barring no injuries, right? So I'm factoring that in. No Steven Adams. They lose Marcus Smart, so we don't even know what benefactor that could be for that team. And we don't have Ja Morant to see where he either helps his defensive side of the game or picks up for it. Like we don't know. So yeah, I'm looking at it. And Zach Edey, like I said before, Zach Edey is everything that they might have wanted.
He played last night too, by the way, for the first time.
I'm a Zach Edey non-believer. I want to be clear. I'm somebody who I don't believe in Zach Edey. But while Summer League, don't take too much good or take too much bad.
Right.
But he was up against Walker Kessler Jr., who is an NBA caliber player, and got 14, and 4 blocks, something like that.
Yep.
I just can't wait to see if he can do it at the NBA level. I still have my questions and my doubts, but like I said when they drafted him, if he is going to work in any situation, Memphis may have been the best situation for him to go to.
And what is one thing that we all know? Memphis has great player development. They do this. They get players that are not really looked at, seen, heard of, or whatever, and they make them good players. That's just, they've done that for years. And my biggest thing with Memphis is Zach Edey, to me, all he has to be is Steven Adams light. Rebound the ball, hard screens, which you saw last night. And I do not care at all about Summer League. I don't. I've seen guys not translate, but there are a couple things when you're watching Summer League that will transfer over. Defense transfers, because that's just understanding where to be, foot speed, how you get back, and your effort. Those are things that translate, right? Made shots, maybe not all the time will translate, but everything else in those realms do often translate over. And for me, if Zach Edey can provide them that, they also have Brandon Clark as their backup big, which when healthy was one of the best backup bigs in the NBA. So I like Memphis a lot. I think that the Ja, Bane, and JJJ trio have been a very successful trio when on the floor together. And I wouldn't be surprised if they run a lot of these teams out of the gym in the regular season.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Another big thing too, like you said, the thing that because I don't take summer league too seriously either, but like you said about the things that do translate over to the NBA, to the big leagues, is screen setting for Zach.
Yeah, yes.
When I think about when I was watching, I sat back and I said, John Morant coming off these screens, Lord have mercy. John Morant,
especially when he's like already got them in jail off the screen with that free space. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was just like, yo, this dude's gonna be a dog. At least if he I'm not saying he's gonna turn out to be some superstar, right? I'm saying if he fulfills his role, his Steven Adams obligations for this team, right? Like if he does that, which I think he can do, and at a high level, and he's young, bro, like all of these things I'm factoring in, and I'm sitting there saying this Memphis team could be scary. And then you factor in the fact that they get all their guys back healthy. You know what we're going to get from a John Morant. You know what we're going to get from a Desmond Bain. You know what we're going to get from a JJJ. Even a GG Jackson at this point, like you said earlier, the player development. It's like, yo, this team, if you get Marcus Smart off the bench fully healthy and or in the starting lineup, whatever the situation is, like, this team, coached by Taylor Jenkins, a coach that I think is excellent. I love Taylor Jenkins. Man, I feel like Memphis got it. They got themselves a good squad. No distractions this year, right? They have a year off from injury and a time to reflect and sit at home and realize that we don't say stupid shit on TV, knowing that we're gonna go viral and end up getting smacked by a 39-year-old man that y'all kept disrespecting. And another thing too, this has the potential to be a different look, like a new look Memphis team in terms of identity, in terms of how they approach the game, right? The other Memphis team with Dylan Brooks and the crew that was, second in the Western Conference, whatever, like that team was young, talented, and kind of delusional at certain points. I think that this team having a year to reflect off as the lead, for your leader, John Morant, having a year to reflect off and be like, all right, let's look at what we got now. And let's show everybody what they keep sleeping on, right? We'll see how it goes. Waiting on Jalen to get up in the mix too, because I'm trying not to transition into the Clippers one. Let's talk about Miami. Let's talk about Jimmy Butler.
Miami's interesting.
I feel like that's something that's been flying under the radar a lot throughout this postseason. I get it, Paul George, free agent, woo-hoo. But Jimmy Butler is going to be 35 in September, people. All right? He could be looking to opt. I think he has a player option for the 2025-2026 season.
I think so. Yeah.
So, shit is looking to get real shaky real fast, especially considering the fact the last time we heard from Pat Riley publicly, he was telling Jimmy Butler to shut that ass up, shut your mouth, boy. What you talking about? You ain't got no burn. You ain't been on the court. What you talking about?
You ain't no Michael Jordan.
You ain't no.
One of the greatest all-time things. It's hilarious, man. But sorry, go ahead.
But you know what I'm saying? Like I think that's something that we should talk about. Let me get y'all's thoughts on that situation. Where do you think a team like Miami, how they're going to look next season, and then how do you think that situation is going to pan out going forward? Hayes, you can start off.
I think that the Miami Heat are in an interesting situation because everybody knows that they've been trying to make a big trade for like the last 18 months and haven't been able to get it done. Terry Rozier, but clear to the neck injury, he's reportedly going to be healthy. They brought in Khalil Ware, maybe theoretically to move Bam to the 4, which I think that would be really interesting to see Bam get more minutes at the 4 after what he's been able to do at the center position for the last few years. But this is a team that I think the Miami Heat culture is real. We've established that. There's no question for it. It's not just a buzzword. It's an absolute real thing. You look at what Jaime Jaquez did coming into that team, and the fact of one of the reasons why I like the fact that Khalil Ware went there is that Khalil Ware had motor concerns through the draft process. A lot of that seemed to be eliminated, but Jaime Jaquez last year said something that was so important to me. He said, I had to learn how to be a Miami Heat player before I had to learn how to be an NBA player. That's how important Heat culture was.
Yeah.
So for a player like Khalil Ware, who has so much raw potential and that can be refined, coming into that type of culture, I think that's going to get the most out of Khalil Ware. And if Khalil Ware hits for them, not to put everything on the rookie, you got Bam, you got Tyler Hero there, you got Jimmy Butler. They all need to do their role and things like that. But if Khalil Ware comes in and he's ready to go right away because he adapts to Heat culture and things like that, it could be such a change the thing to have a shot blocking big that can hit threes and can run the floor. That could be something that really changes the situation, at least next season in the short term for the Miami Heat. So I do think this is going to be a Heat team that is hoping they're going to be able to unlock some of that magic they had 2 seasons ago now at this point, and that they think that they can go on another run. I truly think that they are going to go for it. We know that if they get to the midpoint of the season, they'll make whatever trade they feel like can better this team as well. And because of that, because of Heat culture, Eric Spoelstra's coaching, I'm not counting this Miami Heat team out no matter how they finished last season. They still got 46 wins, but I think this is going to be a team that's there to make some noise in the East, in my personal opinion.
I feel like everything Hayes said is on point. The Heat are this team that every year we have big questions about because more oftentimes than not, they don't have the talent to get you there. But I kind of feel like the Heat are going to be in trouble if they don't get a healthy season from Butler this year. Every time limping into the playoffs does not do you any wonders because if you're a team that makes a deep run, you got to be healthy. You have to be. And I think in this Eastern Conference with more improved teams, this Heat team can't just not take the regular season completely seriously because the talent is a lot better. Boston is a lot better than what they were 2 years ago, right? So for them, you want to really see them take those strides, but I think Khalil Ware is an important player, man. That Heat team has had to have Caleb Martin, Hayward Highsmith, right? Like smaller players at the 4. Khalil Ware with Bam as a front court makes a lot of sense with their length and their size and how they are athletically able to shift the court. So if he can really be a player that can translate into the NBA, that's a great asset to have there. But Jimmy Butler, I mean, hey, his contract is coming up. He's getting to become a much older player. They need another great season from him and for him to translate in the postseason if they want a shot. I kind of don't know exactly where these guys are at, but Jaime Jaquez, Hayward Highsmith, they need leaps from a lot of players if they really want to be in that actual championship contention conversation. So just because they're Miami, they're very well built as a team, but I think as a structure in terms of who the players actually are on the floor, there's a lot of question marks for this team too.
I agree with that last point you made, Gifted, about the structure. Like, yes, the team and Heat culture is great, but it's about the players and how and what they can do at the end of the day. For as great as the role players were en route to the finals in 2023, they did not hit the same shots, at least in the NBA finals when it all really counted, right? When the chips were down. And, some people would say the same thing about the 2020 Heat team, but the difference between that and 2023 was those role players and key players got hurt, right? Like Goran Dragic, Bam, right? And in the bubble, it was a different story. So Jimmy was essentially the last hope that they had, and he was giving you 40-point master classes and 35-plus point outings and losing. And it was just like, damn. But looking at this team now, I mean, like Gifted said, it's on the shoulders of Jimmy Butler. So hopefully he's able to stay healthy and we're able to see this team actually be able to go toe-to-toe with a Boston or a Knicks or a Philly or or Bucks, whatever. But I don't really know if I have stock in them anymore just because of playoff Jimmy and the Heat culture itself, because at the end of the day, it's like Jimmy's not getting any younger, So it's a situation where you just got to look at it at face value and say, okay, do you even have enough pieces to contend with what else is going on in the conference? That's another thing, right? And in the years that they were able to win, they weren't having to deal with situations like Boston having Kristaps Porzingis on the squad along with Drew Holiday and or Milwaukee having Giannis and Dame, right? They were walking through Milwaukee with Drew and Giannis over there and Chris Middleton together, right? So
exactly,
it's a whole different ballpark now. Now you got the Nova Knicks. Now you got PG in Philly. Now you got Dame and Giannis still over there in Milwaukee. You still might be able to get past them, but whatever. Like
got a young Magic team that's coming up too.
A young Magic team that's coming up. Yeah, facts. With a KC with an experienced veteran KCP in the line, right? So you just have so many different elements to the conference in comparison to what you once had. So we'll see how that pans out. Moving forward, let's go to the Minnesota Timberwolves. The biggest question mark that they have for Minnesota is Anthony Edwards a championship level number one option? Now, when you first hear that question, what goes through your mind? Chat, I'll get it on this too. Is Anthony Edwards a championship level number one option?
I mean, I don't believe so, but I think for the Wolves, what makes them stand out from a lot of teams is they're just physically built different than a lot of these teams. There's not that many teams size-wise that can really keep up with them. And they were close. They just ran into a very bad matchup with the Mavericks where there were certain things offensively that they just could not capitalize on, which they paid for in that overall series. I think Anthony Edwards every year continues to get better. I think he has potential to grow into that for sure for them. But I feel like the reason why they have a chance is they have a talent like Anthony Edwards, and the rest of the team is built pretty fairly well. I just think offensively, you want to see growth from them in different types of spots. Because last year, I mean, if Cat and Anthony Edwards actually showed up offensively, they probably beat the Mavericks, but they had both two of their worst overall series in the playoffs against that Dallas Mavericks team. So can they beat those allegations next year? We got to see that.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't personally think that it's really an issue of Ant being the number one option. I said it before, right after they lost. I said to y'all on here, in the coming years, are we going to start looking and pointing the finger at if the Timberwolves aren't really able to get over the hump or at least get back to the conference finals as consistently based off of them making it this year? Are we going to have to start pointing the finger at Karl Anthony Towns and start wondering, is that the thing that's holding them back? Because going into this year, right, them losing out on Kyle Anderson, I'm interested to see who fills that hole for them in that second unit. I'm interested to see that, right? They still got Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert, right, Jaden McDaniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker and the crew, but I'm interested to see what they do going forward because, like you said, the worst series that they had in any of the in the postseason was that Mavericks series. And for Cat, we were raving about him up until that point. I remember looking at his true shooting and being like, damn, Cat's really out there on it throwing heat seekers. And then we get to the Western Conference Finals and it's a different story. And it's a different story. And to me, I think with Anthony Edwards, right, I think him flaming out in the Western Conference Finals, for lack of a better word, is just based off the fact that it was his first time getting there. Like, in the coming years, I think the Timberwolves, depending on how shit shakes out and if they're able to keep at least the core of Ant, Cat, Rudy, Nas, I think that they can be serious conference finals contenders. And in that time span, we'll see a leap from Anthony Edwards if he's able to make it back to the conference finals, knowing what type of work he's going to have to put in the offseason to be as conditioned to go through it. Because you saw in the Western Conference Finals, there was moments where he was dead ass gas. Like even in the second round, because the second round was a 7-game series. Even in the latter half of that series, he was gassed. So making it deeper into the playoffs, it's a grind in and of itself. Even Kyrie telling Luka Doncic, "Are you tired?" Yeah, like this is what it is. So I see Anthony Edwards building off of this and continuously being in that conference finals contention and getting better as a player.
Same.
Don't know where Hayes is. Don't know where he went. Don't know where Jalen is. But let's talk Clippers.
I'm with it.
If they come back, it is what it is. They'll just hop into the conversation. But we get that you, my good friend, are the one that actually came up with this title. Mm-hmm. So tell me and the people why you think the Clippers are an unserious franchise.
Okay, so as ZZ said, I came up with this title, and the reason why I wanted us to discuss this today is because of what was going on with Paul George. Yep. We know how it ended, but we didn't know the specifics of everything. Paul George had a podcast yesterday where he broke down everything in terms of his contract with the Clippers, how things went for the entire season, and why he wound up leaving. Now, I was like, okay, it's weird how you let Paul George go. All your picks are gone. You chose to not pay Paul George, but we don't know what happened, so I will wait and I will hold off on judgment. But on the outside looking in, I thought it looks kind of weak. When you pivot to what actually happened, at the start of the season, ZZ, which I'm not sure if you heard the podcast or not, but at the beginning of the season, they came to Paul George with a contract offer. Yep.
Yep.
It was for 2 years, $60 million.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason why I call you a unserious franchise is you're telling me that if Paul George is not lying, which I don't see why he would lie if he's getting paid more money by another team now. At this point, it is what it is. To offer Paul George 2 years, 60, that is a low ball deal to Paul George. Players like OG Anunoby are making well over that, and they're not a Paul George caliber player. They're just not. So for you to offer him that few money, what that says to me is A, you're trying to get him for a steal, which makes no sense. And B, you're unserious because the whole point of having a NBA asset, right, ZZ, is you have a player, you want to win with the player. If you can't, you want to turn that player into other players who you feel like you can win with in the future. That's the point of it.
Right.
If you know that you have a year of Paul George coming up, and there's a number you're not willing to go over no matter what he does for the regular season, right? No matter what, then you trade the asset early before you lose him for nothing in the offseason. So the fact that they began with 2 years was one thing. Paul George says more time passes. He plays in more basketball games. They then are about to extend his running mate in Kawhi Leonard. So Paul George hears wind about this and says, hey, whatever you're giving Kawhi Leonard, I'll take that. I'm not going to ask for more. We came in this together. Just pay us evenly. Now, obviously, Paul George is not the same caliber player as he is. He's not. So on surface level, it might seem like Paul George is asking for much. But in reality, based off the games played, based off their deepest run into the conference finals, that was Paul George.
Right.
So I think that paying him a similar contract that lines up to Kawhi Leonard actually makes sense, given that he's been the more reliable player during their tenure on the Clippers. They said no. They don't want to do that. So if you're going through Paul George's head, you offered me 2 years, $60 million when my market is at least $40 million per year.
Yeah.
Right? 2 years, 60 is 30. So that's a whole $10 million below what my lowest offer would probably be. And it's only for 2 years. Disrespectful. Number one. Then I come back saying, hey, I'm still down to take less money. Just give me the same contract you gave Kawhi Leonard. Another no. Okay, let's not talk anymore because now it's starting to bleed off into the court. And Paul George said he wanted to wait until the offseason because he was getting very frustrated. It was starting to show on the court. He didn't want to be near the team. He was getting upset. So he just said, let's just wait on it. I don't want to have to basically go through these things, all that cool, right? Season ends. The offer for Kawhi's contract, they're now offering Paul George after the season ends, right? Which is 3 years, 150. Paul George says, okay, based off how you treated me during the regular season, I want a no trade clause on that contract. Now, I don't know how you feel, ZZ, which, you know, I'm curious about, but me personally, I'm not giving out no trade clauses. I'm not doing it. So I'm fine with the Clippers doing that. That's not the point, though. The point is you put yourself in this position by treating Paul George that way during the regular season and for not trading him in the first place if you didn't want to pay him the money. That's my point, ZZ. I want to get your thoughts on that, but all of that to me screams bad management from the Clippers.
Yeah, they dropped the ball. We talked about it on Sunday, I think, before this we figured out where he was going. And I said the Clippers are in a sticky situation because they're in a situation where you either let Paul George go for nothing or you try to retain him the same way that you got back James Harden on a 2-year deal and you extended Kawhi Leonard and you try and run it back and see what happens, you know, as you move into the new arena and all of that. They didn't do that. And listening to Paul George's podcast, I listened to it when I was at work and I heard the story. And I sat there and I said the same thing that you said. I was like, yo, you mean to tell me that at the beginning of the season, they thought that your value was 30 a year for 2 years?
Insanity, bro. Insanity.
If I'm Paul George, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of, right, you can't look at it and say it's different from when Paul George was like 27, 28, right? This is a 33, 34-year-old Paul George with a family, right? Ties in the city because that's where he's from. You know, he's trying to get that long-term stability. right? And for people that looked at him saying, "Oh, give me the same thing that Kawhi got," and they had a problem with it, when you really look at it, the only reason that I had a problem with it initially was because I was like, it's not as if Paul George performed in the postseason to get that money. It was the same situation. Same. I looked at it the same way I looked at James Harden calling Daryl Morey a liar, right? I was like, you can't get mad at him for pulling an offer when you played like shit in the postseason. But that's another story for another day. In Paul George's case, I'm like, yo, you mean to sit here and tell me that they're playing with you essentially with the initial offer, and then they reject what you bring to the table, which is fair considering the fact that you're there, you're more available than Kawhi Leonard. I think that NBA fans are starting to understand as the years go on and we start looking at these guys that we keep having hypothetical conversations about, Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, what have you, about what they would be when they're healthy or what have you. Joel Embiid is slowly trickling into this conversation, and if that shit doesn't pan out, he will be in this conversation. But gone are the days where we as fans are looking at players and saying, okay, if he'd be top this if he was healthy, top 5, top 10, whatever. No, bro, availability matters. I remember people scoffing at that notion when people originally were bringing that up as a rebuttal for people saying that Anthony Davis was a top 5 player when he was healthy and all of this shit. People were like, oh, whatever, but when he's there. How often is he there? It's the same exact thing for Kawhi Leonard. We give praise to Kawhi Leonard for being a great and phenomenal postseason performer when he is healthy. But if he is not there to perform, after a certain amount of time, it's like, what validity does that argument hold anymore?
And now, who does that put more pressure on, by the way?
Exactly.
If Kawhi's not there now.
Exactly. Yeah. And then when you look at it at face value, it's like, then you start pointing the finger at Paul George, and it's like, rightfully so, but at least he's there. Your entire offensive flow and what you have built up that makes you unstoppable, if you will, at your best when you're healthy, it's not there because Kawhi is not there. So all of what you've worked on when he is there, right, that has made you look at your team and say, okay, yeah, we can work with this unit, with this motion, with this offensive scheme. You can't do that because he ain't there. So now Paul George's responsibilities go up. James Harden, who I told y'all back when we first started this, we were talking about the Clippers in the regular season, is there for it as an insurance policy. And it's 9 times out of 10, it is not going to work out at all for you. And then you factor in Russell Westbrook, who he had 20-20 splits in the postseason. In this postseason, he had 20-20 splits in the first round for his averages throughout the series. Crazy work. So you're relying on all of these guys who were household names for the decade of 2010, but nah, bro, like that's not sustainable. So now the Clippers are in a situation where they're cap fucked and everything else. They don't know what to do. They're in a situation where if all goes horrible for them, what can they really do? They got James Harden locked down for 2 years, maybe 2 years, right? With James Harden, if shit goes south, he could be out of there in a jiffy and requesting a trade out. With Kawhi, he's locked up till, was it 2026, 2027? So that's a question that me and you were talking about. We don't even want to have the discussions of his trade value, Gifted, because we can't even get our heads around that right now, right? Because we got to see everything play out the first couple months of next season. But
yep,
it's a situation where they're going to trade Derrick Jones Jr. after a while. He's making $10 million a year, I think. So it's
I believe he's making 10.
So it's like, what can you really do? What assets do you have? Russell Westbrook opted in for that $4 million, but there's a way that he could find himself out of there as well.
I think he's going to be gone probably. Yeah.
So, Nikola Jokic is having inquiries about Russell Westbrook too. So the Clippers are in a situation where they don't know what their direction is. You don't know. You're going to start off the season with Kawhi and James Harden running the show, and that's it. That's not good. That's not good at all. And they did it to themselves. That's what it is.
And like, my thing is, I understand people who might question, like, why are we criticizing the Clippers when their best players can't stay healthy, right? But the problem is, you chose those players, right? You chose Kawhi Leonard. You chose Paul George. And my biggest problem with this whole thing is, regardless of that, if you have Paul George as an asset, you have a year to plan for what his contract is going to be. You have a year to plan for what the market is. Your job in the front office is to think years ahead, right? To understand the money is going up, to understand a new CBA is in place. Let me understand exactly what that means, right? to know, okay, well, we have a number for Paul George. We're not going over no matter what, right?
Mhm.
If you didn't want to give him 4 years, maybe he would have took less if you didn't offer 2 years 60 first, because that disdain and that insult is going to stick with him, especially when you say no again when he's asking for Kawhi's contract. You then wait an entire season to give him the contract he wanted back then. Well, no. Why am I taking less now when I can opt out and make more money elsewhere? Now it's too late. Now I'm going to remember how you treated me during the season. So fuck you. I'm not going to sign that contract. But if they maybe had said, okay, we understand you want to get paid. We want to be conscious so we can build a team around both of you properly. How about 2 years, 85? Like something that makes more sense for his market. But to lowball him so severely and then wind up letting him walk for nothing when you had an opportunity with the Warriors to get assets back and you said no, you basically let him walk for absolutely nothing. To me, that is the definition of an unserious franchise. That is you not being prepared to do what it takes. Again, I'm not even saying they had to sign Paul George to the contract that he wanted. What I'm saying is, even if you don't want to do that, trade him then. But to let the asset walk for nothing, that is definition 101 for what is a unserious franchise. It doesn't matter whatever you felt like he could have been, this, that. You have to make a decision. Because again, this is not 2K. This is real life. You have a new building that that you spent multiple resources on. You paid Kawhi Leonard, who is an injury-prone player. You paid him already. You traded all of those expiring contracts for James Harden. That's what you did. So based on that, the money has to be paid. If not, make the trades necessary. Get something back. Getting nothing back is a failure. And you're an unserious franchise for that. You are.
Yeah. And when you also take into account, matter of fact, hold on. I'm going to actually read this super chat. Thank you, the tribal one. Not solely, but biggest reason I have no problem with players asking out is because the franchises themselves pull shit like this all the time. W players. To that point, I understand what you mean. And that's where you often find an imbalance in opinion on what is considered morally right, if you will, within the league when it comes to business being done. Because you hear it all the time, like the NBA is a business at the end of the day. There is no loyalty in the NBA. There's no real loyalty. And if there is any loyalty, it comes from only with one player, one franchise. Think about it like this. If the Boston Celtics become the next dynasty, right, the first one that's going to go between the two of them is going to be Jaylen Brown. That's what it is. No matter what happens in that time span, he can win another Finals MVP. He'll be the first one to go. Look at Klay Thompson. No matter what he did in the time span of being there, right? They built that offense with him being a vital part or being the Robin to Steph Curry's Batman, right? And you saw what the hell happened. Paul George in his time devoted as much as he possibly could, right, to that organization. And to be honest with you, like Gifted said, they gave up so much to bring in not just Kawhi Leonard, but Paul George. They came in as a duo. Paul George ends up walking out of the door. Kawhi got the benefit of the doubt, still got paid, even though we knew he was injury prone as hell. So, sometimes the ones that you think should deserve a little bit of loyalty end up getting the shit end of the stick in comparison to the other guys. That's just how it is. But, shit sucks. I look at the Clippers and I say, this is one of the most unserious franchises, but it's also one of the most cursed, honestly, when I look back at it. This team has been cursed since they were like the Braves. Like this team has been cursed for years and has a history of making bad transactions and or deals since the like 70s, right? Like this team, this shit dates back years of bad moves, bad draft picks, terrible trades, bad contracts, whatever. Like they gave what's the dude's name? Spencer Hayes. They gave him 4 year like $70 million deal and back in like 2014 2015 around that time frame. It was a crazy deal, but they just sometimes they just hand out money and it's like, what the hell? So I look at this team and I say they don't own their draft rights till 2030. So if they wanted to tank, they can't even do that correctly. Like it's a situation where it's they're screwed. All right, for the foreseeable 6 seasons, for the next 6 seasons, they're screwed, and they did it to themselves essentially. I don't know what this next season holds for this team, and I genuinely want to get your thoughts on this. Where do you think that they end up ranking next? Not ranking, but seeding wise. Where do you think they end up falling next year? Chat y'all too.
I think the Clippers are such a hard team to rank because losing Paul George takes their value down dramatically. But it also means that the usage rate of Kawhi Leonard and James Harden goes up, and those are very quality caliber players. But again, this all rides on how healthy is Kawhi Leonard going to be. If he shocks the world and plays 60-plus games, they're going to probably make the playoffs as maybe a 6 seed, maybe 7 seed, right? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a world where the role players with more opportunity with Kawhi Leonard and James Harden play better. But again, that's assuming Kawhi is there. If Kawhi suffers yet another injury-prone season, they are a lottery team. I feel like I can confidently say that.
Yeah. And it sucks because what value does that hold to them? Like, what does that bring them being a lottery team? They can't afford. They got to compete. They got to compete in order to keep themselves from having to, or not from themselves having to, but Kawhi forcing his way out of LA. Because I look at, you got to think, the Clippers can't afford to tank because they're not going to tank. Like, why would Kawhi Leonard sit there and be a part of that? They know that they can't tank. They can't afford to do it because why would Kawhi do that? If that happens, he becomes disgruntled, and then you end up in a situation. You start looking at them as the same way you looked at the Brooklyn Nets, dysfunctional. They don't know what's going on. Their star players unhappy. Like they're cooked, bro. So, like Gibson said, if Kawhi Leonard is healthy, right? Because he played was it 60? He played 66.
I think he played 64.
64.
No, cap. He played more because to be eligible for All NBA, I'm pretty sure the thing is 65. I think he played damn near 70 games last year. Low key.
Yeah, okay. He played over 65 games, right? How has that happened in the last 6 years? So you're banking on that essentially to get you into at least playoff contention because you hope to at least have Kawhi Leonard. But that's my thing. Even if Kawhi Leonard plays the majority of the season, and then you get to the postseason, and he gets hurt again. And you can't go deep into the postseason or bank on having a deep postseason run with Kawhi Leonard if he even plays over 65 games again next year. So you're in a situation where you're just praying to the basketball gods and the Lord himself. Like you're just holding out hope at this point, and it sucks. You think the Blake Griffin situation is why he asked for a no trade clause?
I honestly think the main reason why he asked for it is he felt like he could not trust them. He felt like you guys say that you want me here, but at the end of the day, I don't know that for sure unless I have it in writing. Give me a no trade clause. But I think a part of what hurt that trust is when you offer a player such a low ball offer. When you offer a player 2 years, $60 million, when their market is 40 at the least, that makes them not trust you. If you're going to offer me that low money, it's proving that you want me as an asset, which is fine, but that means I can get traded whenever I want. So give me a no trade clause. And I'm sorry, but objectively, you're not giving Paul George a no trade clause. It's not going to happen. So if that's the case, you should have traded him earlier or negotiated better, is my point.
Mm-hmm. Can I vent to y'all? I know we're talking basketball. Can I vent to y'all? This is why neither one of y'all have kids. Keep it that way. Because how I had to leave here all of a sudden, right? Because I got a text message. That text message read from my older daughter, "You need to come upstairs. Your son's head is stuck in the banister." So I've just been spending the
Don't have stuck in the banister? That's tough.
Don't have children.
That's very his head was in the banister.
I literally walked upstairs and I just looked at him for a minute, like, how did we end up here, son? How did we end up here? Sorry,
that's tough.
I needed a vent. I had to come get some therapy. Like,
I feel you, bro.
How did we end up here? It's crazy. Yo, all right. Well, Hayes, now that you're back, we're glad to have you back. But chime in on this Clippers talk, bro. Me and Gibson already gave our spills on why this organization is a joke, but which ran on that for me.
The Clippers are like hearing what we heard about the Paul George and the contract negotiations, things like that. It's nothing but disheartening because you wanted him, like Kawhi wanted him there. You guys recruited him, you brought him there, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so the fact is that this is a Clippers team that it's like you're dying and you don't realize you're dying, and you're dying a slow death at that. You extended James Harden, which take that for what you will, but like this Clippers team is going to be the perfect example, much like the Brooklyn Nets team as well, that also had James Harden on it. It's going to be the ultimate woulda, coulda, shoulda team. What would have been, what could have been. And some of it is by their own hubris and design, and they don't understand that you're dying. That's what's happening with this Clippers team. They are going to be a team that has a lot of potential talent on it. Can we name them the all variance team? That may be what we're going to be at.
All variance is hard.
All variance team, like, because it's just like that's what it is. And so it sucks for a team to be able to put something together, to have talent, and injuries be the biggest part that held it back. And I love the owner of the Clippers. Like, he just generally seems like somebody who
he's
really
a good owner to me.
He wants to put a winning franchise out there, but like you just have a bunch of head cases and players that just can't stay healthy. Like it just sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rough spot to be in. I'm curious about how the next season looks for him. We still got to see what happens with all that, but I'm just saying my bigger point is it doesn't matter if you are a fan of the team, if you think that we're being too hard on the Clippers. Bottom line, asset management in the NBA is extremely important. And for you to let that go simply because you didn't want to handle the side of the contract ahead of time, that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
Like that can't be something that is just thrown away. That matters. All of it matters when it comes down to trying to compete for a championship. You can't let things like that go. You just can't.
Yep. It's really wild. And it is what it is, man. At the end of the day, like this Clippers team is when you put all the chips, when you put all your chips on the table and you're banking on winning a championship, and your championship window, you are essentially trying to open it up wider. Sometimes you end up in a situation where you just put too much on the table and you end up losing more than you gain. And that's a situation that this team has went through. You gambled away your future. Like Gifted said on Sunday's episode, you gambled away your future, and a part of that future was SGA. You could have had SGA and Kawhi Leonard, but it's not necessarily on the front office for doing that. It's more so on Kawhi for wanting Paul George there and telling them do essentially whatever it is that you have to do. SGA is now a better player than both of those players, and it's only been 4 years, if that. So it's a tough spot. They did it to themselves, and like Hayes said, I love Steve Ballmer. I think that he brings off. You got to think too. The Clippers. If you're a Clippers fan, which I don't know any personally. Don't know about y'all.
I know a couple.
I don't know any personally. For the ones that you do know, pray for them. But my thing is like if you are a Clippers fan, you've experienced this team for years, like be barely in playoff contention, and then if they were either out by the first round, and if they were lucky the second round, and then you know what I'm saying? Like that's what you went through. If you were lucky to get them for them to get out of the first round, and then if they ended up out of the second round, if they ended up getting to the second round, you were like, okay, this is a positive year. All of that, you went through all of that just to find out your owner was racist. And then after that, right, you get Steve Ballmer, happy, energy, right, all of that. I'm really happy to be here, sweating and shit. Like
all of that,
great. It's great, and you know that he wants to win. You also know that he's filthy rich. So there's optimism there. And then you get Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. So there's optimism there, right? All of that. And then it's all for nothing. Now you end up in this situation, right? And in that time, before the season even started, Clippers fans were claiming that they were running LA. I was like, y'all sit y'all ass down somewhere and stop playing. I don't give a damn if the Lakers miss the playoffs. Y'all still don't own shit. I don't care if y'all win the championship. Y'all still don't own shit in LA. You could win one championship. You need to win 16 more, nigga, to maybe 10 more to even be looked at. At this point, it's like, oh, okay. So who let the Clippers win the championship? Like that's how they gonna look at it. Like they're not gonna look at it as like y'all took anything. So it's interesting. And even them, you remember when they got Jerry West? Like the Clippers have made a lot of strides to get people.
Jerry West had him in the right
front
spot to
office,
me,
right?
man.
He did.
Yeah.
Jerry West
He had
was a
him in his spot.
genius.
Yeah.
Jerry West was a genius, right? As a front office executive. So it's a tough spot to be in. But I don't really have much else on the Clippers per se. Any other teams that y'all want to talk about? Y'all got any inquiries about?
I mean, we kind of touched on it last time, but I really want to know if you're in charge of the Bucks, what do you do for this season?
Shit. What can you do? Let's start there. Because shit, the way I see it, like I said before, if you were in a situation where you're trying to win a championship, you throw all your chips on the table. And the Milwaukee Bucks were in a situation where they won a championship in 2021. They had a solid core in Drew Holiday, Giannis, and Chris Middleton. The only issue with that core was inconsistencies consistently in Drew Holiday's offensive game and Chris Middleton's health. That was it, right? So the way I look at it is they won the championship not just because of that core. The solid pieces that they had around that core, right? Brook Lopez, the contributions from him and Bobby Portis, right? So you found the formula in order to get you over the hump, in order to at least be looked at as championship contenders, right? Then you start losing. Then fingers start getting pointed. Then coaches start getting fired. And then the ship just starts sailing from there. You start seeing everything start falling around beside you. That's what I look at when I look at this Milwaukee team. And some people, like Brandon Katz, I don't know how the hell you got out of timeout, but we're going to figure that out. People like Brandon Katz saying that they got lucky. Look, you can say that, right? KD's foot being on the line, I feel you. But the way I see it, Giannis Antetokounmpo had 50 points in a closeout game in the finals. That's how I see it. So luck and all that shit, it's a part of every single NBA championship. I don't really care, right? Giannis had 50 points in a closeout game, and then got a 50-piece nugget from Chick-fil-A the day after. So I don't care about none of that. At the end of the day, they had a formula that was resulting in good wins. That was resulting in them being at the top of the conference, which is all they needed. And then at the end of the day, the last thing you need is that luck that Brandon Katz is alluding to, that every team needs, right? The luck that you can point to for a team that, like the 2017 Warriors, looked at as one of the greatest, if not the greatest team of all time, right? Oh, but what if Kawhi Leonard was healthy? Oh, what about the 2018 team? What about Chris Paul? Luck plays a part in everything, and it always will. So deal with it. This team had the right formula. They panicked a little too early, in my opinion. You lose out on that defense that you see what value that holds in a final series like Drew Holiday. You want to talk about plus minus and all that shit. And then you look and you see where the defense is important that you lost now in Damian Lillard and Malik Beasley as your backcourt. You lose Malik Beasley, you bring in Taurean Prince. Good fucking luck. Like that's not moving me that much. Yeah, it's an improvement defensively, but 3-point shooting, is that an improvement from Malik Beasley gifted to you, Taurean Prince?
Man, I think the biggest thing that you got to see from the Bucks is they have to trust their young players. They have to play Andre Jackson. I don't know if you guys saw how he's looked in the minutes he played last year, but even over this year's overall summer league, Andre Jackson to me plays defense. What are they lacking? Defense, athleticism, a body. That's what he can give them. Like just give them a chance to actually improve your roster, because outside of that, if you don't do that, what are they doing to really compete? Because every other team at the top in the East, for the most part, got better. Boston, off the fact that they went through an entire Eastern Conference with basically no Porzingis outside of the first round, will be better by default. Right. Also including the chemistry from having won a title and being so world beater good last year. So to me, it's like all of these teams. Philadelphia, adding Paul George, who can take pressure off of Maxey and Joel Embiid. What is the Bucks' answer to that?
Yeah,
playing more players. I really feel like you can't have an asset sitting there who could help you out and not spend time trying to develop him to get him ready. I said shit for next year, because you're not winning this year. I said that last year. Get him minutes now so he can be for sure ready next year and then grow off of that. He needs room to grow. I think Bud would actually be doing that to me, if you ask me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think this is a team that what we've been saying for a while, to go back to it. Role players matter.
Role players matter.
They matter in everything. And so, like, this is a team that when you look at it, like, even losing, what's the guy? I can't remember the no lips dude who's now on Phoenix Suns, the dude with no lips, Grayson Allen.
No lips, dude. It's hilarious.
I mean, Grayson Allen doesn't have any lips. Like losing him was an important part as well. Like you need those type of role players, especially if you're going to go all in on offense with having Dame Lillard there. Now, I'll give them some credit. Maybe Dame Lillard is better in year 2 than he was in year 1 with their Milwaukee Bucks. Not like we haven't seen a player be better their second year after being traded to a team, but their margin there is very, very small. That's what I
very small.
Yeah. It sucks to me because like to Hayes' point about them losing Grayson Allen, like I understand that there's moves that you have to make or tough decisions that you have to make as a front office, but when you go away from the morals of your team and what's made it good or what's made it contenders, and you go away from what exactly that you need, like in my opinion, you didn't need to go get Damian Lillard. That wasn't necessarily what it was. If anything, you had that second scoring option in Chris Middleton, and you had that second, not even second, I guess you could say third defensive option between the two of them and Chris Middleton before the injuries. But after the injuries, you've seen the production take a dip. You've seen the availability take a dip. You've seen even the defense take a dip. So the questions that you should have been having are maybe about Chris Middleton and his value of what you possibly could have gotten at that particular moment in time, as opposed to saying, okay, yeah, let's move off of Drew Holiday and go get Damian Lillard because, yeah, we love that scoring. We love that. No, bro, you could have built something. You could have moved Chris Middleton off and tried to get another piece to maybe fill that gap in the lineup at least, while still keeping the key rotational pieces that you had left over after making the deals post Grayson Allen. So that's how I look at it. Is you could have went about it the same way, but you could have not the same way. You could have went about it with the same intent, but just in a different way, right? Yes, we need to make a move. Yes, we might have to move off of one of the pieces of the big three. Is it really Drew Holiday though? Can we really go find somebody that can replace his defensive value in the starting lineup right next to Giannis Antetokounmpo? Can we really find somebody to do that? Who? Pat Bev, don't nobody want that shit. We'll take Drew Holiday. Like, so it's interesting, but they're stuck. They haven't really made any significant moves outside of Taurean Prince. So I will give them the benefit of the doubt, like Hayes said, as to okay, you're not going to win a championship your first season together. That's right. Let's see what we do next year. Maybe Doc Rivers is figuring something out. More than likely not. But we'll see. So. It is what it is. Is there any other team that we have? I mean, we talked about it. Another thing, too, that I'll add as the last point, we can't look at the Milwaukee Bucks as a championship contender or say that the needle has been moved in any way, shape, or form without considering first what the Knicks have done in the offseason. Like Gifter said, what the Philadelphia 76ers have done in the offseason, what the Celtics have even done in the offseason in terms of retaining the pieces that helped them win the championship. So when you look at all of that and then you look at Milwaukee, the question that you have is, what have you done? What have you done to improve from last year, right? You still got the same raspy old shitty-ass – like you still got the same Doc Rivers. And you know what I'm saying? Like – So what have you done? What have you done?
Doc Rivers always sounds like he just been drinking a pint of E&J constantly, like bro. At all points in time.
Man, bleached out his entire vocal cords, man. It's rough, man.
Vocal cords sound like a fucking dry ass chainsaw. Like it's crazy.
Rough spot to be in.
No,
like how do you have ashy vocal cords? Like that's crazy. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy to have ashy vocal cords. Like it doesn't matter. Like
light work, bro. Like I don't understand. Another team that I think we should talk about here for a little bit is where do the Pelicans go? Where do the Pelicans
go? The Pelicans are a very interesting team because they still have not traded Brandon Ingram, and they did trade for DeJounte Murray, who we thought we going to like. I didn't expect him to end up on the Pelicans. So it feels like they're going to try the 3-star thing and maybe not trade BI, but you're going to have to pay BI because he has 1 year left. So it's like, how is that going to work? I don't know what the Pelicans are doing. really. I wanted to have Trey Murphy and Herb Jones in the starting lineup because that was their best lineups when they had those two guys out there. But with DeJounte Murray, I don't feel like you can do that. And they don't have a big right now, which is like, I really don't know what they're doing. They traded Larry Nance, who was an important piece to closing out games for them as well. Like, it's such a questionable thing. I don't know how y'all feel about it, but like, I don't know what my opinion on them are because they could either boom or bust. I have no idea right now.
I was looking at a stat and it says, let me make sure I got it right. Where is it at? It says at the point differential per 100 possessions was worse when what happened? What's that? What happened? No way you did it again. No way. That's the third time. Bro, you getting timeout and three times in one show is crazy. Like,
it's just the fact that Brandon he has no life, so he comes here and tries to found an outlet, and nobody likes him. He's literally the kid just walks around the playground like, somebody please play with me. My daddy doesn't love me, and nobody still wants to interact with him. Like,
that's a dumb take.
That's a dumb take. That's a capsule. Doesn't make any sense. It's like literally he just sits there. Google. What? Oh yeah, he averaged 29 points. That's a dumb. Shut up, bro. Like,
yeah, he wanted them. Okay. He wanted them. Actually, niggas. Like, shut your dumb.
Yeah. Like, well, actually,
why I oughta.
All right, but the stat that I saw was that the point differential per 100 possessions was worse when Brandon Ingram was on the floor with Zion Williamson than it was when either of them played without the other. So it's an interesting situation that the Pelicans have found themselves in, where we looked at them at one point in time and said, "Oh, the lineup with BI and Zion, I'm interested to see that. CJ McCollum, I'm interested to see that." Now we're at a point where it's like, even watching at the end of last season when Zion had 40 points right before he got hurt, and BI was sitting there, like, BI was out for the majority of that fourth quarter because of the injury or whatever it was, but he was losing minutes. So it was a situation where you're sitting there saying, what value do you have if Zion at his best when he's healthy is competing and dropping 40 points on a team that is supposed to be better than us in some people's eyes? But if we're healthy, we can be at the top of the conference like they were at that one particular moment in time, I think in the 2022 season. But that's just not the case. It's tough. I don't know where they go from here. Like Gifted said, they don't have a freaking center. Lost out on Valanciunas, so I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do, but it's a situation where it's not only dependent on Zion's health anymore. It's dependent on what they do with BI.
Well, I mean, getting DeJounte Murray there, I think, helps them. Their lineups make more sense. Like, that's one thing with them, is their lineups just haven't made a lot of sense. Now, they do have to find something to do with BI. That could bring them their center. But don't overlook Eve Missy being drafted by that team. And the only reason why I say that is that some of Eve Missy's strengths are the fact that you don't have to call plays for him. Yeah, he's a young center. He's probably going to foul a lot. But, like, he's one of those players that you don't have to call this. Just go out there and do what you do naturally well. Rebound, run the floor, block some shots. If he does that and comes in and does that well, then maybe they have a little bit more hope at that center position. But I still think them making Brandon Ingram available, like truly available, just to say, everybody come to the table, what's your best offer, could completely change the outlook of the remaining of offseason, I think, in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I left his name off of their Hayes because I do believe he could have value, but I'm trying to think in my head, like, how big of a role is he going to be able to play? Because even their rotation in terms of backup big is still questionable. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. And like, I think that's something that they're going to have to figure out. But I think the point of getting DeJounte Murray is, CJ, you're not a point guard. We've tried this for years. You are not a point guard. You are a two guard, and that's fine.
Thank God.
Yeah, because he was fucking terrorist. But like, it makes sense to have DeJounte on this team to do that. My question is, like, the basketball fit of DeJounte, Ingram, and Zion seems so disgusting to me. Guys that are just better with the ball in their hands. They're not necessarily catch and shoot players. Like, how does that look? You know,
I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I was scrolling on my phone. I completely forgot. Y'all just reminded me that DeJounte's there. So that's something I also didn't even factor in when I was first speaking. So with that, that's something I'm also interested to see because a player like DeJounte Murray, you thought when you saw him in San Antonio that a player his caliber would be the exact fit of what the Atlanta Hawks needed based off of them coming off of that run that they had to the conference finals in 2021. And that didn't pan out to anything in 2 seasons, right? So now him coming to New Orleans, the question that I have is, like you said, Hayes, the center that they brought in, he's young. So the development and all of that, that's going to be something that's going to be a process, right? Now we're looking at them and we're saying, okay, what are they going to do to fill those gaps in order to capitalize on this DeJounte Murray acquisition? And like I said, no matter what they do at the end of the day throughout the offseason, it all revolves around Zion's health. That's it.
Yep.
So if they could go out there and land a stud and a defensive center that they might need, or somebody to fill the role of Valanciunas, or get them on a value of the same contract or on a low contract or something like that, they could do that. But even if they do, it's all up to Zion's health. That's it. That's really it. Brandon, your devotion is something that I admire, and it pisses me off. And for you to say you have 48 people watching the show. Hold on. No.
Shut up.
For him to say you have 48 people watch the show and you have been banned and put in timeout 3 times, and you have continuously come back to the show, says more about you than it does our viewers. Stop playing with me. Matter of fact, if you would like to leave, you can. No one will miss you. Like no one will.
Well, see, you gotta understand like who Brandon Katz is. You know, Brandon Katz is some 400-pound man who licks his own nipple while he jacks off. Like he's struggling at life,
it's
bro.
One of the things that it's one of the other things he's doing right now.
Yeah,
what's on in the background? What are you talking about? If this is on in the background,
first of all, it's gonna be on in the background when you've typed probably 50 messages in here. Like that's not in the background.
He said it's in the background, like he ain't been typing in the chat.
Like what are we talking about? So yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, we about to wind down. We about to wind down. We about to go ahead and get up out of here. Appreciate everybody for coming on and watching us. You know, Brandon, you especially, considering that you have the most comments typed out of anyone else in that thread.
He's the biggest fan of the show. He's here every single time before we even start. He can't talk about anybody. Like
that's what I'm saying. You were the first 6 comments, my nigga, today. You were the first 6 comments. You, not you, Duke, and the crew. It was you. Crazy work. One more super chat before we get out of here. Janice Walker
Turner and a pick for BI. Who says no?
And 1 pick?
What's the pick?
Yeah.
Who's
What's
Janice?
Jarice. Wait, is that Jairus?
I think it's
Okay, word.
Yeah. I think it's Jairus. But for 1 pick, like damn, I don't know. That's an interesting one.
I don't know how to feel about that one.
I don't know how to feel about it either. Here's why I don't know how to feel about it. Because me personally, I don't give a shit about the Pelicans. But at the same time, for Brandon Ingram, I know the type of player that I look at him and I would value him as, especially at this stage in his career, given the injury. So maybe that could work. But I don't know. I don't know. We'll come back to it on Thursday. How about that?
For sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, appreciate y'all for sticking with us for this hour and 23 minutes and 35 seconds. Jalen, we missed you today. For you missing the show, you better have a fire ass title on Thursday. Otherwise, we will have issues. I will send Brandon to your house personally to berate you throughout the week.
Oh gosh!
And he gonna shit on you first thing.
Hey, Claire just said Brandon's on thin ice. That's how you know you're feeling that life.
Talk to me.
Claire has more patience than anybody I know in the world.
Oh, she does, and she understands. She know us. She know our patience is very thin too. Shit. But appreciate y'all for sticking with us. Love y'all and goodbye. I guess y'all got any final goodbyes?
Nah. We are officially gonna be in the off season soon. A lot of actions already taking place. More is to come. So stay tuned.
And remember,
the one thing in the world that gets more shots than all the shots taken in the NBA season is the amount of shots that Brandon Cat's mama takes to the face on a daily basis. So there you go on that one.
There we go. And that's how we go in the show. Y'all be good, be safe, and remember, Jeremy Sohan is ass, and so is Brandon Katz. Y'all be good.
Random straight.